Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about a weekend that a lot of fans in North America have been counting down to for months, the only Canadian stop on BTS's massive Arirang World Tour, and specifically, why one member in particular ended up being the name everyone kept repeating afterward, Jimin. If you are new here, make sure you subscribe, because we cover moments like this all the time, breaking down not just what happened at these shows, but why they matter so much to the people who were there and the millions more who watched from home. Let's set the scene first, because context really matters here. BTS kicked off the Arirang World Tour back on April 9th in Goyang, South Korea, and since then it has grown into an absolutely massive undertaking, spanning 85 shows across 34 cities in 23 countries, running all the way through March of 2027. This is the group's first headline world tour since 2021 and 2022, and more importantly, it is their first time touring together as a complete, full 7-member group since all of them finished their mandatory military service. For fans who have waited years for this exact lineup to be back on stage together, that alone makes every stop on this tour feel significant. But Toronto held something extra. Out of all those cities, all those countries, Toronto was the only stop in Canada. Not Vancouver, not Montreal, just Toronto, and specifically 2 nights at Rogers Stadium, a relatively new outdoor venue built on the old Downsview Airport lands in North York. For Canadian fans, this was it. This was their one shot on the entire tour to see BTS live in their own country. That kind of scarcity changes the entire atmosphere of an event. When you know this might be the only chance you get, you show up differently. You feel differently. And that energy was reportedly felt throughout the city in the days leading up to the shows, with the city even installing BTS-themed signage along major streets in North York to mark the occasion. Both nights, August 22nd and August 23rd, were completely sold out. Every ticket through the official ticketing platform was gone well before showtime, with only resale listings remaining for fans who were still trying to get in at the last minute. Gates opened at 5:30 in the evening, with the show beginning around 8, and from the moment doors opened, it was clear this was going to be one of the standout stops on the entire tour, both for the fans in the crowd and for the group performing on stage. Now let's talk about the show itself, because the set list for these Toronto dates was stacked with a mix of career-spanning hits and newer material from the Arirang album. Fans in the crowd got to hear everything from Dynamite and Butter to Fire, Not Today, and Idol, alongside newer tracks tied to the current era. It was the kind of setlist designed to hit every phase of BTS's career, giving longtime fans the nostalgia of early tracks while still spotlighting where the group is now creatively. And within a show built around 7 members each bringing their own strengths to the stage, it was Jimin's moments that fans in Toronto kept coming back to afterward. If you have followed BTS for any length of time, you already know Jimin has built a reputation as one of the most technically gifted performers in the group. He trained in contemporary dance before debuting, and that background shows in the way he moves on stage, fluid, controlled, but also emotionally expressive in a way that is hard to teach. On a stage the size of Rogers Stadium, where performers have to project not just to the front rows but to tens of thousands of people spread across an entire outdoor venue, that kind of stage presence becomes even more important. It is not enough to just hit choreography. You have to make people in the very last row feel like they are watching something happen just for them. Fans who attended have described exactly that kind of connection during his moments in the show. There is also his vocal work to consider. Jimin has long been recognized as one of BTS's primary vocalists, known for a distinct tone that carries a lot of emotional weight, especially on the more ballad-leaning or emotionally driven songs in the group's catalog. Performing live in a stadium setting is a completely different challenge than a studio recording. There is no editing, no retakes, just the performer, the crowd, and whatever happens in that moment. According to fans who were there, his live vocals during the Toronto shows held up in exactly the way longtime fans have come to expect, reinforcing why he is so often praised specifically for his live singing ability, not just his choreography. What made this particular stop feel different from other cities on the tour, according to fans who follow the tour closely, was the atmosphere itself. Because Toronto was the only Canadian date, there was a sense among the audience that this was not just another tour stop, it was a once-in-a-cycle event for that entire country's fanbase. Some fans traveled from other provinces, and even from other countries nearby, specifically because they knew there would not be another chance on this tour. That kind of crowd, people who planned trips, saved up, and treated this as a true bucket list moment, tends to create a different kind of energy inside the venue. Performers can often feel that from the stage, and it can shape how a show unfolds in real time. After the show's wrapped, clips and reactions began circulating widely on social media, with fans specifically highlighting Jimin's moments from the 2 nights. Fan edits, reaction videos, and highlight compilations started spreading quickly, with recurring themes in how people described what they saw, calling him a standout of the night, praising his stage presence, and specifically highlighting his live vocal delivery. When you see that kind of consistent reaction repeating across different fan accounts and different clips from different angles of the venue, it is a good indicator that something genuinely stood out in the room, not just in an edited highlight reel. It is also worth noting the broader context of what this tour represents for Jimin personally and for BTS as a whole. After years of mandatory military service that took every member away from the stage for extended periods, this tour has been framed repeatedly by both the group and by media coverage as a genuine comeback, not in the sense of returning from obscurity, since BTS never lost their global relevance, but in the sense of the full group physically being able to perform together again after years of individual paths and, at times, uncertainty about when or how a full reunion tour would happen. For fans, watching Jimin move and perform at this level again after that gap carries extra emotional weight. It is not just a concert. For a lot of people in that crowd, it was proof that this era they had been waiting years for was actually, finally, happening in front of them. I also want to talk about why moments like this resonate so strongly even with people who are not deeply embedded in the BTS fandom. There is something universally compelling about watching any performer operate at the peak of their craft in a live setting. You do not need to know every lyric or every dance break to recognize genuine skill and genuine connection with an audience. That is part of why clips like this travel so far beyond the immediate fanbase. Someone with no prior context can watch a short clip of a performer commanding a 50,000-person stadium and still feel something from it. That crossover appeal is a big part of why moments from these shows end up reaching audiences well outside the core fandom. There is also something to be said about how physically demanding a tour like this actually is. Performing at this level, night after night, across multiple continents, is an enormous physical and vocal undertaking. Add in outdoor stadium conditions, which can vary wildly depending on weather, wind, and sound projection challenges that indoor arenas simply do not have to deal with, and it becomes clear just how much stamina and consistency is required from every performer on that stage. When fans specifically praise a performer's energy and precision at a stop like Toronto, deep into a global tour that had already covered dozens of cities before it, that consistency is genuinely impressive from a pure performance standpoint, regardless of any fan bias. Let's also talk briefly about what Toronto as a city brought to this. Rogers Stadium itself is a fairly new venue, built specifically as a large-scale outdoor concert space, with a stated capacity in the tens of thousands. It has already hosted several major international acts since opening, and BTS's 2-night run there added to a growing reputation for the venue as a serious stop on major world tours. For a city that has increasingly positioned itself as a top-tier concert market in North America, hosting the only Canadian date on one of the biggest tours of the year was a significant moment for Toronto's live music scene as well, not just for the fans attending. Something else worth pointing out, because I think it adds an interesting layer to this story, is the way BTS's global fanbase tends to travel for moments like this. It is not unusual, when a group only announces one date in an entire country, for fans to organize group trips, coordinate hotel stays, and treat the weekend as a full event rather than just a single evening concert. Local fan communities in Toronto were reportedly active in the lead-up to the shows, organizing meetups and coordinating around the 2 nights, which adds to the sense that this was as much a community gathering as it was a concert. So circling back to the actual question at the heart of this video, why did Jimin specifically end up being one of the most talked about parts of these Toronto shows? I think it comes down to a combination of factors working together at the same time. His technical performance, both vocally and in terms of stage movement, landed exactly the way fans have come to expect from him at his best. The emotional context of the tour itself, this being a true full group comeback after years apart, added extra weight to every performance moment. And the scarcity of the event, Toronto being the only Canadian stop on this entire run, meant the crowd's energy and attention were arguably even more locked in than usual, creating the kind of feedback loop between performer and audience that tends to produce standout, widely shared moments. None of this happens in isolation, either. BTS as a group has spent over a decade building a reputation for genuinely investing in their live shows, not just going through the motions of a standard pop concert. Elaborate stage designs, catwalks extending out toward the crowd so more fans get an up-close view regardless of where their seats are, and set lists built to satisfy both longtime fans and newer listeners are all part of what makes stops like this one feel like an event rather than just a scheduled performance. Within that structure, individual members still find ways to have standout moments, and for this particular stop, in this particular city, it was Jimin's turn to be the one everyone kept talking about afterward. I think it is also fair to say that moments like this tend to resurface again and again in fan culture long after the actual show has ended. A single striking clip from one night in Toronto can end up being referenced, reshared, and rediscovered by new fans for years afterward, becoming part of the broader archive of memorable BTS performance moments. Whether that ends up being the case here remains to be seen, but the early reaction certainly suggests this is a stop people are going to keep talking about. Before I wrap up, I would love to hear from you directly. If you were watching clips from the Toronto shows, or if you were lucky enough to be there in person, what stood out to you the most? Was it Jimin's specific moments, or something else entirely about these two nights? Drop a comment below. I read through them regularly and I love seeing different perspectives on shows like this. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who might enjoy content like this. And if you are not subscribed yet, now is a great time to join, because we cover tour stops, standout performance moments, and stories from across the BTS world regularly, especially during a run as massive and eventful as this current world tour. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I will see you in the next video. Take care of yourselves, and I will catch you next time.